On today's show, Lauri Markkenen signs his big deal. He's a big winner, but there's one big loser in this deal. And I'll tell you who it is on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome. You're Locked On to the NBA. My name is Nick Angstadt, host of the Locked On Mavericks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On NBA your first listen today. The best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform. Leave us a 5-star review, like the video on YouTube, comment anything below. Let us know who's the biggest loser in the Lauri Markkenen signing. It's kind of a weird thing. Like, guy signs this deal. Who's the loser? That's what we're talking about today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And joining me, as always, on a Thursday, host of Locked On Bulls. What you got for me, PatTheDesigner?
Are the Chicago Bulls still somehow the loser? Anytime there's a former Bull that like gets the bag, it's just like, how somehow we lost. Somehow it feels like we lost.
I do have them as a loser.
Oh, dang it. You bastard.
Pat read the reading. He read the he read the chapters before class today. We'll talk about Lauri Markkenen. We'll talk about the deal and what it means for everybody, the winners and losers. And one of the losers is the NBA's middle class, who we'll talk about a little bit later because of the CBA. And then, of course, we'll do Count It Up, where we count out the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including how much should we take stock in Olympic play for basketball players, and a guy that scored 50 points signed on a team and nobody cares. We'll talk about all that. But let's first get into Lauri Markkenen. He signs a deal with the Utah Jazz. 5 years, $238 million deal. He's 27 years old. Never played more than 66 games since his rookie year, where he played 68, which is not that many more. He, 3 years ago, was coming off the bench for the Chicago Bulls in 2021 and now signs a max deal for the Utah Jazz. What does this deal mean for Lauri Markkenen? Why is he a big winner?
I mean, listen, it means security for him, for one. He secured a really nice contract in the NBA. He's the big winner here because he's on a team in the Utah Jazz who, you know, there's not a lot of high expectations for this team. So he kind of got that, listen, we can't let you just walk out the door for nothing. If we're going to move you, we're going to sign you to a contract now, and maybe we'll move you later. So he gets the beneficiary of probably at some point, I would assume, being moved to a team that maybe is more in contention because he's on this contract now. Maybe you can now see a number that he's locked into while still getting the money that is going to change his life around. Although he's had some really nice contracts in his time in the NBA, you know, this is a really big number for him, 240 over 5. So I think, to me, like when you look at how Lauri Markkenen ends up being the winner in this whole situation, it's the fact that he's probably going to go to a better situation and still be getting the bag the entire time. I think that's best case scenario when you're a player who, you know, listen, there's some questions around Lauri. There's a major question around Lauri, right? Because I think not just around me. Yeah. I mean, that's a different conversation. There are questions around me. But like to me, the biggest question with Lauri was always, and I said this even in his time with the Bulls, it was never a lack of talent. It was a lack of durability. Lauri Markkenen, when he was aggressive on the Bulls, there's videos of me saying on the Windy City Breeze, like, he's one of the best power forwards in the league when he's aggressive. At that time, I really felt that way. But every time he would show that consistent aggressiveness, a shoulder would pop out, or he would hurt his back, or something would go wrong with his knee. And that, to me, was the biggest issue that you had. And at the end of the day, you can have all the ability in the world. Your best ability is availability. Those are words that when I watch sports and when I evaluate players, I live by. And Lauri Markkenen is just somebody who's not available. And it's somebody who has a lot of players on this team who are not available. It makes it very tough to win basketball games consistently with a guy like that.
I think, to me, he's a winner because in this whole deal, obviously, because you get the money, you secure the bag, secure the security, like you said, and all that. But he did take himself from being that player that came off the bench for the Bulls, the one that you saw the talent, and other people have saw the talent. Obviously, he went, top 10 in his draft class. People were comparing him to Dirk and all that. Blasphemy. But they were doing it, and he turned himself into this type of player. Yes, he goes and gets more opportunity, goes from like 11 shots a game to 17 shots a game. So yeah, he gets more opportunity there in Utah. And maybe that's what he needed to get to that point where, all right, I'm going to take like a bunch of possessions where it doesn't really matter what I do because this team is not going to win games, but I'm going to go out and I'm going to get to go play my game, do whatever I want out there, try some post up stuff that he got better at, all those kind of things. And he turned himself into an all-star, and this is the big number that validates it. Yes, the all-star appearance probably validated him a lot, but this validates all the work put in and all the growth that he's had as a player, and I think that makes him a big winner. Is he a winner or a loser for not being able to be traded from the Jazz this season?
I think he's a winner because if you get traded, are you getting much bigger of a contract than this? You got the security. You probably still get traded. Right? There's no way that the Jazz are like, we're building around Lauri Markkinen. This is our future piece. At least it doesn't make sense to me. And they have a GM. They have a GM that kind of does things the smart way. If it was the Bulls, I'd be like, no, this is the guy we're building around here. 60 games a year. Oh, we're still doing that. But you know what I mean? Like this is a
compare Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkinen.
Yeah, exactly. Don't you dare. There's a guy in Danny Ainge who operates in a very smart way, who operates in a very logical way. And so I think the logical path here is you sign Lauri to the contract now, you move him at some point during the season when, right? Like what is the request that everybody in the NBA has? It's the reason that I'm not worried about the Bulls moving Vooch. We need a tall guy that can rebound some, shoot threes, and knows how to finish around the rim. It's Lauri Markkinen. As long as you've got him healthy and ready to go, he's going to be tradable throughout most of this season, I would assume.
Yeah, he's a big winner in all this. I think getting the contract, doing all that. I mean, maybe he doesn't want to get traded from Utah. Maybe he wants to stay there. And, all signs point that he wants to stay there. And so, hey, you could be a winner because you got what you wanted. The loser to me in all this is the Golden State Warriors. Right? Like the Golden State Warriors are the team that were rumored to go after him. There were talks. There were trade talks. It was really the only team that was actually connected in actual rumors to be trading for, Lauri Markkinen. And to me, like, what do the Warriors do now? What's their pivot? Do they pivot to Brandon Ingram? Who else do they pivot to now? Do they try? Is there somebody else that we're just not seeing that all these NBA shows have been talking about for? Is it Zach LaVine? Do they pivot?
Gotta lightly use the guy.
If you listen on the podcast,
less honestly, if being real, who costs less?
If you listen on the podcast, and I appreciate each and every one of you that do, every once in a while, Pat will make a face that I just know this is Bulls related. The next topic is going to be Bulls related. That was the face that he gave me. Yeah, so maybe they pivot, but I think that now the Warriors just kind of roll in this season with their like Steph plus Draymond plus role dudes.
Yeah,
I'm not even going to call them role players. They're role dudes.
Here's why I don't think the Warriors are losers. Here's why. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that everyone in the NBA who kind of doesn't get desperate and then decides to trade for Lauri, and which may be the Warriors at the end of this. Let's be real. It may still be the Warriors. But here's why, at least right now, I'm not going to call them losers. Basically, Lauri Markkinen year over year is getting $47.5 million per year. That's a player that is yet to finish out a season who at the end of just about all of these seasons, except for maybe one in Cleveland where he was hurt at the beginning of the season, has not been available for any playoff runs. I think he was only there for 2 possible playoff runs. He's also not been a player who has been available towards the end of the season, so maybe he could have come back, but his team has not been in playoff contention. Yeah, we saw Utah get off to that piping hot start, and that might be crazy. We saw Utah get off to that really hot start, and you kind of saw that fizzle off a little bit later on in the season, and it was not because of lack of talent, but because of the injuries that continue to creep in. So I don't think that there is a loser here. If anything, right now, I would say maybe you could say the losers are the Utah Jazz, because at the end of the day, 60 games is probably what you're getting, guys.
So you think the Warriors are a winner for avoiding trading for Lauri Markkinen?
I think that, listen, I said it earlier and I'll say it again. Your best ability is availability. Lauri Markkanen's a phenomenal three-point shooter. He's really strong finishing around the rim. He can do everything that you want a NBA power forward / center to do. I mean, he's that kind of player, but he can't do it if he's not on the court. And the theme of Lauri Markkanen's career has been not being on the court. You just gave that guy $47 million. That's a lot of money. Listen, as somebody as a team has got a lot of money out there, That's a lot of money to somebody who you're not going to be able to utilize, to me, at least in the second half of the season. Now, if all of a sudden we see this magical stretch of health from Lauri Markkinen and that's not, a problem anymore, that's a different situation. Now you're sitting there saying, okay, well, you got him kind of at a really good price. But I really look at this as one of those, like, you paid a guy who basically showed you in his history he doesn't have an ability to stay on the court. Don't be surprised if, guess what, he may not be able to stay on the court.
Interesting. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube or on Twitter. Are the Golden State Warriors a winner or a loser for missing on Lauri Markkinen and not being able to trade for him this season? Coming up, are the Jazz winners or losers for signing Lauri Markkinen?
I was early.
Talk about that. Come on. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook gets all kinds of props and odds and things that you can use to get in on the action. They got Olympic basketball. If you're listening to this on a Thursday, that is coming up, and it's probably already happened. But just for your records, Germany was a 4.5-point favorite against France. USA 16.5-point favorite against Serbia. USA is -600 to win the gold medal. -600 does not seem like big enough odds right there for USA. That could be free money right there.
That's a bag right there. That might be some easy money. If you throw some good bread on that, you might be winning.
Now you have to bet $600 to win 100. That's how that works. But still, I mean,
I bet 6 and win $1.
Pat can do math, and so can you at FanDuel. Go check out and see what's available at FanDuel all the time. They have boosts and bonus daily for everyone. FanDuel.com.
Count it up.
Thanks everybody for hanging out with us on Locked On NBA, being part of the show, being an everyday or listening every day. We have a daily Locked On show that covers your team. Make your second listen today Locked On Bulls, Locked On Mavs. Locked On Mavs today. It's basically, I had somebody on my Mavs Insiders text line text me and say, I'm so glad that you did Locked On NBA Part 2 on Locked On Mavs today. So if you like this show, go listen to Locked On Mavs today, because we did the over-unders for win totals for teams. And what are you guys talking about Locked On Bulls?
Locked On Bulls, we've talked a lot of Josh Giddey Olympics. And the quote that has been taken so completely out of time.
Can't believe he's got to wait 4 years. He's got to wait 4 years. God bless.
Hey, you want to know what he averaged in the tournament? 17 and a half.
No!
Dang it, Josh. Come on, man.
Oh,
these jokes are too easy.
The Utah Jazz re-signed Lauri Markkinen. They extended him 5 years, $238 million. You said that the Warriors were a winner for avoiding getting Lauri Markkinen. So are the Jazz a loser then for keeping Lauri Markkinen, who they gave this huge bag to, who's now their star player, who's making all their money basically, and who's a guy that's not available all the time, which has been a feature for them. But when they decide to start winning, will that become a bug, and they'll have to decide how they want to move on from him?
I mean, listen, I think that if you focus on, okay, Lauri Markkinen is the future of our team, you can build a nice team around him. You just have to kind of build that team on hope. You know what I mean? And this is something that we have seen multiple teams in the NBA do. It's not new, right? Guess what? Philadelphia does this every single year. Lauri Markkinen is a talented enough player for you to say, at least he's a piece of what we could be if we want to be a much higher competitive team. And you just have to take that chance. And some teams are willing to do that. I just think that that's not a great way to build a basketball team. It's how, and again, right, I feel like I keep going back to the Bulls, but it applies to them so much. It's how the Bulls did this. They signed Lonzo Ball. I was excited about that signing. But I literally was like, this guy gets hurt a lot. Like, what happens if he gets hurt? He's missed 2 seasons, right?
He got the most hurt.
and I can't sit here and say, well, I'm shocked to see that Lonzo Ball missed this time, because you've seen a history of that. I'm just a big believer that if you've got that history already on the books, you have to know that you're taking a real risk about the future of your team. Now, at the end of the day, how many talented players are you going to go out there and just find that are as good as Lauri Markkinen right now? I'm not mad at you paying Lauri Markkinen. I think it's a very movable contract as well, especially for some teams, like I said, that could end up getting desperate midway through the season. So it still leaves you with a ton of options. But if you want to build your team around Lauri, you just have to kind of go in with that I don't even know if that expectation, but you have to go in with so much of a contingency plan to say, okay, what happens if we lose our best player on the floor?
Let's also be clear. Like, Lauri Markkinen is not an MVP caliber player that just completely changes your team and makes you, oh man, we make the play in every single year or make the playoffs every single year because we have this guy on our team. But they were 22 and 33 when he played last year, and so they're a little better than you would maybe think. Let's see, that's 40. That's
throwing that
32.
record out there did not make it sound like this was a good side. Did you say 22 and 33?
That's a 32-win season over 82 games. But the thing is, they want to be a team that gets in the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, right? Like that's the other part of this. This is why I thought that maybe they were losers for this, is that they're losing in the tankathon standings. But you can take that two ways, where some of these teams that are so bad, you got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. You can't just bottom out and completely have nothing, no vets, nothing, and then all of a sudden try to like be good again. Detroit Pistons, look at them. Now they haven't gotten the another like generational talent besides Cade, but they haven't had like the veteran guy that has been there and is helping them go to the next level. And so maybe having a Lauri Markkinen that's a credible like all-star player around some of these younger guys helps them in a way that if he was gone and they just had nothing and we're like, all right, we're straight up bottoming out, that wouldn't help them either. So I think you can make a case for both sides. It's boring, but I'm on both sides this one. I think that they're winners and losers in this one.
I think it's tough too, because you almost have to kind of like, not to say that it's not at all a benefit to like just bottom out and tank for Cooper Flag, but look at the teams that were at the top last year. The Hawks didn't bottom out. They tried. Now it didn't work, but they did try, and they made it into the play-in, right? They were number one. The Rockets were a team that tried last year to a certain point. And I mean, like, and things just didn't work out in the long run. The Bulls, of course, got in there. They were in the play-in. They were in the top 11. So it's one of those things where, like, yes, it makes sense to try and bottom out, but it's kind of getting to a point now in the NBA where Adam Silver has this lottery system working like an actual lottery. Like, it's almost worth it for you to try and be as competitive as possible and take the chance that a lottery is going to hit.
Does it mean anything that the Jazz kept a star in Utah? Or is it just because they can offer him the most money? And maybe that's it. But like, for a small market team, for a team that isn't, like, we always say they're not going to attract free agents. Well, they kept one.
I've had this opinion because, and I think it's because the basketball that they grew up watching is a little bit different than what we see in the NBA. But I've had this opinion for a while of European players don't mind being in small markets as long as that team is loyal to them, because they grew up watching their countrymen kind of play for the same team for longer periods of time. You don't see as much movement in FIBA as you do in the NBA. So like when you see Giannis stick around in Milwaukee, I think it's because Giannis grew up watching guys be loyal and stick with their teams. I think when you see Jokic staying in Denver, right, we always see, right, this guy's going to be so ready to get out of there. And they're always like, no, let's get a freaking deal done so that I don't have to leave. I want to be here. So I think that plays into it a little bit as well. But it does mean something that the Utah Jazz were able to keep a player who is a 23 to 25 point per game player, a solid 3-point shooter. It's a nice player for you to have, and it's a building piece for your team. I think the struggle that you have to address, though, is what you said. You gave a good chunk of the money that you have to Lauri Markkinen, who, yes, he's the most improved player. Yes, he is a one-time All-Star.
Yes.
But is he that guy? You can only be most improved player once. Is he an MVP candidate? Like,
is that I don't true? No, you can do it more than once. You can do it more than once.
He's going to go from 25 points per game to 50. Like, yeah, I mean, like,
if he did, he would win most improved again.
If he did, he wins most improved and he wins MVP. Like, that answers all the questions. This is the greatest contract of all time.
Another one of the losers, just one of the current losers in the NBA right now, and this is not because of Lauri Markkinen, but this deal and others have like pointed this out to me. Like, the CBA is hurting some of the middle class players, like some of these guys that we think should be getting the like the mid-level exception. Your Tyus Jones, he's making $2 million. Gary Trent, $2 million. DeLon Wright, $2 million. Dinwiddie, $2 million. Russell Westbrook making $3 million. And like Lauri Markkinen is making $40 million than all those guys. Is there a $40 million difference between Lauri Markkinen and a Tyus Jones, a Gary Trent?
Yes, because none of those guys can be. Here's why. And this is more based off of what we've heard from the athletes. Lauri Markkinen right now can be the face of an NBA franchise and deal with the pressures that come with that. Now, whether it means being the face of a franchise that wins a championship or not, that's very different. But right now, he's the face of a franchise, and he's dealing with the pressures of that. That's why you get the $40 million. Gary Trent can't.
I'm not saying those guys should make $40 million, but shouldn't the gap be closer between the two? And I'm saying that these guys are losers because these good teams that they want to go to, your Suns, your Milwaukee Bucks, they can't offer any of these deals because of the way the new CBA is. They can't offer them. If it was a $10 million deal that was the mid-level exception or something like that, 12, 13, whatever it is now.
But I don't think that's
then all of a sudden there's a $30 million difference, and that's not as crazy as $40 million difference between these guys.
I don't think that's a change, right? Because if you're going after the bag, think about when LeBron James got all those guys to come down there who were still good players and could still contribute to teams in Miami, right? And they're sitting down there making $2 million, $3 million bucks, and you're just like, what the heck's he doing down there? Oh, winning championships. Okay, I see why he went down there now. Like, I don't think that that's a difference because if you want to go after the bag, there are teams that will pay you the bag. If Tyus Jones wanted to go for more than $2 or $3 million,
yeah, the Pistons would have
teams out there that could have paid him that, right? There's teams out there that he could have lobbied to go after that. And I think that teams would be like, yeah, but you know what those teams are? Probably the teams that are at the bottom of the Eastern and Western Conference that are like, we would love to have a solid player come in like you, and we would be more than willing to pay you more than what you're worth right now because we need some stability on this team. If those aren't the teams you want to go to, don't complain about the money that you're not getting.
There just used to be more exceptions, like the mid-level exception, biannual exception, things like that now some of these second apron teams just don't have access to anymore because of this new CBA. And so to me, those guys are losers. And this just like this number to me, this like Lauri making $42 million, just like further like emphasized it to me.
It's so mind blowing. Like here's the one here's the one that's tough, right? And this is what I thought of when I saw the Lauri Markkinen contract come across. How many players can make a Lauri Markkinen jump if given the opportunity? That was the thing for me that
you get 6 more shots. Again.
That was the thing for me where I was like, I wonder how many players like are just like, maybe I should go to some of these teams. Just like, I got no answers. And maybe that will be a benefit to those players in the long run, because it literally is like Lauri Markkinen didn't do that much different than what he did early on with the Bulls. It was just like, hey, it's your team. Go after it.
You know who would agree with?
Oh, go ahead.
You know who would agree with the go to a bad team and enjoy it? Kyle Kuzma.
Kyle Kuzma's getting the bag out here. He said, "I'm living in Washington, dog. And are you playing well? Don't care."
Coming up, it's counted up the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, where we talk about including the should Olympic play be held against some of these NBA guys, especially Jamal Murray. Talk about that and more coming up.
Count it up.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Everyone has things in their life that you just need to talk about, that you need to work through, that you need to sit down with somebody, and somebody that's a licensed professional that knows the counter questions to ask. Because sometimes you talk to your friend and they're just like, oh yeah, man. Yeah, right. No, you're right. You're 100% right in this. Everything that you say, it's always two guys telling each other exactly. Sometimes you need somebody that's not just going to tell you exactly every single time. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. Fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. I've used BetterHelp before. I enjoyed that you could just schedule it whenever. It doesn't have to be the same time every week. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Big chicken, baby. Zion Williamson and porn star.
Take that for that.
Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up. Count it up.
It's Counted Up, where we count all the most interesting, fun things in the NBA, including the Denver Gazette posted this article after Jamal Murray proves to be a total zero at the Olympics. No way the Nuggets should have given him $200 million contract. My question is,
Count it up.
Is it fair or unfair to hold Olympic play against NBA players?
Unfair. You want to know why?
Ooh.
Because Jamal Murray told you he really didn't want to do this earlier. Remember when they were talking about what was like trying out for the Olympics like? And he was like, I mean, I kind of didn't go. And they were like, why didn't you go? And he was like, they started doing 2-a-days. And I was like, I'm not doing 2-a-days. He didn't want to do this. He was pressured into doing this. And then everybody's like, he didn't play well. He didn't want to be there. He wanted to be at the crib. He wanted to go kick it with Jokic. You know what I mean? Like, yes. And you want to know why as well? Because what happened to the last team that gave a player the bag because they balled out at the Olympics? I'll tell you. It was when I believe it was Boston paid Patty Mills after balling out at the Olympics.
FIBA Patty?
Wasn't that when he balled out at the Olympics? Everybody was like, oh, he's coming back different. And he was no different. He was still Patty Mills. Everyone was like, what happened to the Olympic guy? He's getting the shots.
I think for NBA teams, like I don't think they consider any of this anymore. But for now, people will hold it against people's legacies or against people in the NBA. Like you will always, if you're a Jamal Murray hater, you'll always use hey, he shot 8% in the Olympics.
I'm gonna be real with you. If we start holding Olympic accomplishments against NBA players, then Carmelo Anthony is the greatest player to ever walk the face of the earth. Like
KD just passed him. KD just passed him.
Good job.
Well, the LeBron thing. Don't we hold the bronze medal thing against LeBron?
No. At no point do I ever think about the medals when I'm talking about. At no point do you know why? Like we talk about the Dream Team the way we do because they were fun. It was fun to
and
see
iconic. They were iconic.
You know why we talk about the Redeem Team the way they do? Because we got our butts kicked the year 4 years before, and then they were fun and they were dominant. That's why we talk about them that way. Nobody's sitting here going through legacy. Like legitimate. How many gold medals does Carmelo Anthony have off the top of your head?
4, right? 5? You just don't know. You just asked me a rhetorical question.
I'm stating the case that we don't care.
He has 3.
I'm stating the case that we don't care.
Oh, because he was on the one. He was on the one that won bronze.
It's an amazing accomplishment. It's phenomenal for that moment. But when we talk about NBA legacies, we don't pay attention to that. How many does Kareem have? How many does Magic have? How many? Like we just don't pay attention to those things.
Kareem has 0 because they didn't let him play, right?
Did he not? I don't know. He would have won as a college student. He wouldn't have won as a pro.
Right.
What was that still the time where
and he boycotted the 68 Olympics. I forgot about that.
That may be it.
He was not there. Lauri Markkenen may be the big free agent talk that they're all having today. But the only free agent today that signed that has scored 50 points in an NBA game is Malachi Flynn, who signed with the San Antonio Spurs. He had career high 50 points back in April for the Detroit Pistons. He averaged 8 points in 14 minutes a game for the Pistons last season. My question for you, Pat the Designer, is this.
Count it up.
25 years from now, you and I, we're in our, 60s, 70s? We'll have to how will we explain to the children that Malachi Flynn had a 50-point game in the NBA in 2024, year of our Lord?
We will tell them that basketball players be good. I keep having this conversation with y'all, dog. Like
the second, his next highest game was 17 that year.
Bro, if you give guys shots, they will find ways to make baskets. Now, 50 is a lot of baskets to make, but hoopers know. You can always have a day. And that was Malachi Flynn's day. We've seen this in the NBA for quite some time. My favorite, I think it was just a 40-point game. I don't think it was a 50-point game, but just Nate Robinson just absolutely decimating the Brooklyn Nets. Just like, oh, here it is. Here, we balling out right now. Oh, taking threes, dominant. Yeah, I mean, like, those are the things where it's like everybody has a day. And if you get all the shots, you can have a day.
Do you remember the most random 40-point per game list that I came up with?
Yes, I do. I thought it was a 50-point per game list.
But yeah, the most random 50 points in a game. Malachi Flynn, Terrence Ross, Tony Delk, Walt Wesley, Tracy Murray, Corey Brewer.
Yeah.
Lowest career highs that have scored a 50-point game in their career.
I mean, like, it happens. You know what I'm saying?
Not often. Not often. And we should talk about it more. And we will with our children. Last one. Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times reports that the Bulls confirmed You brought him up early. Pat has a hammer, like an actual hammer.
Keep that thing on me.
He confirmed that Lonzo Ball has started playing full contact 5-on-5 scrimmages, as he was scheduled to do once August arrives. And according to one source, he has done so with no setbacks. My question is,
Count it up.
as a Bulls fan, where are your expectations for Lonzo Ball?
Keep your knee. Like, that's all I'm worried about. I have no expectations for him as a player. I have no expectations on him coming back and being a major contributor. The surgery that he had, it would be phenomenal if he was able to come back and we had this like Sean Livingston style story around this. But the surgery had one other athlete has had. He was a hockey player. He was in his 40s. And this surgery was so that he could run normally with his children. So if Lonzo's able to come back from this and recover, I'm excited. But the business side of it is you're not re-signing him, so there's no long-term value in it unless he's going to take like a vet minimum. I think that most teams would have a tough time being like, this is okay. Let's do this. I think that you don't see a long-term future. It would be cool to see a point guard come back from a knee injury and be able to actually like stay healthy on that, because we haven't had a lot of luck with that here in Chicago. But at the end of the day, there's no real expectations on Lonzo Ball, at least from me as a Bulls fan. Some Bulls fans are excited to see him come back, but like if he's 60% of the Lonzo Ball that he left as, I love the IQ, I love the shooting ability. Can you still defend the same? Klay Thompson couldn't.
It's a tough one. There should be no expectations for him. And for those fans, it should just be like, I'm excited to see him play again, like a couple times. Not like I'm excited to see him play and change my team, right? I just don't think that we can expect that from Lonzo Ball anymore. Man, that's a tough one. When you start going down the conversation of like, I just hope he can like run with his grandchildren. Like,
dog, like it's sad,
but it's a tough one.
It is that because it's like the people do have these expectations that are just lofty for Lonzo. And I'm like, what do you think that he's going to return and be? And even if he is anything close to that, how long do you think that he can sustain that? And in Chicago, we have this thing where we're like, we will dream the best for you, even when the worst happens. So there are people who I fully believe Lonzo's going to return. Stacey King said he should be in the starting lineup. I love Stacey. He's somebody who I've actually built a relationship with. He's a phenomenal basketball analyst. He's out of his mind. Like, there's no way Lonzo should return to the starting lineup. But
does that say more about the Bulls or Lonzo?
I think it says more about what the Bulls are hoping for because of the fear of Josh Giddey defensively.
Interesting. And his shot. There you go. Let us know in the comments. We're not holding that against players. Let us know in the comment section. Are the Warriors a winner or loser? Are the Jazz a winner or loser for signing Lauri Markkenen? Go check out Locked On Bulls. Go check out Locked On Mavs as your second listen. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On NBA.
Bye-bye.